In this video, I'm going to talk about how a person with a dismissive avoidant attachment style can start to work towards getting their own needs met, which can feel like a particularly difficult hurdle for this particular attachment style. Hey everyone, I'm Sonia, a life coach, relationship coach, attachment style healing coach, and breathwork facilitator who can help you with subconscious reprogramming and wellness in the breathwork arena as well. And here on these videos, I like to try to share some inside tips for different attachment styles on how to work towards healing their attachment style and have better relationships, and about relationship communication and dynamics in general. So if this content is helpful to you, please like and subscribe. I'm really trying to get this out to as many people who it'll benefit as possible. So today's video was a request because I had a different video that was talking about dismissive avoidance and co-regulation and how to help them start to understand co-regulation, how their partners could understand why there were some blocks towards how dismissive avoidance might view co-regulation, for example, as something more like codependency. And I had a request for a video on, well, how can dismissive avoidance themselves get their own needs met? And this is a really important, crucial question, and actually quite a bit of a challenge, to be honest, because there's a big block that I will get to that is right off the bat for dismissive avoidance in this particular arena. It really was fitting because when I spoke to a DA who's close to me in my life about this, I like to always do that, get a little inside perspective. I have some, hints and insights already on where I'm going to go, but I like to check in so we can get that true perspective of someone who's actually experiencing that attachment style. And what they told me was their first response was, you can't get your needs met. So I think that shows why this is an important topic. It also shows the thing I was just saying, that it's quite a challenge. So for this video, I think there's a lot of pieces we could cover here. For this video, I'm going to do an overview with a slight focus on the first two steps that are the most crucial because of the fact that they present such a barrier to this process. Okay, so let's address you can't get your needs met as being this first response and this big barrier. Like, what is that? That's a limiting belief, right? That a dismissive avoidant might be thinking something along the lines of not being able to get needs met, even if they tried, is a huge barrier because, of course, if they're not trying, then it becomes a vicious cycle. So for many dismissive avoidants, this is because they had a feeling sometime in their life when they were growing up, maybe they weren't getting their emotional needs met, maybe it was some other kind of need that wasn't being met, or they were feeling like they were responsible in a way such that they shouldn't ask for their needs to be met. And that's where this helplessness over getting needs met can come from. And so I would consider this, if we talk about different kinds of core wounds, we can word them different ways, but I would consider this an I am helpless core wound again, because like I mentioned in some other videos, it's a very prominent one for dismissive avoidance. And the reason it's in play here is because, other people don't necessarily know they have the need unless they communicate it. So as an adult, perhaps as a child, some of those should have been anticipated better by a parent, for example. But as an adult, they need to be communicating those needs and, trying to get them met. So what do we do with limiting beliefs? What do we do with a core wound? And the key here is to try to reprogram them. And you can do lots of different kinds of subconscious reprogramming. Breathwork can help with that. There's other techniques for doing it, before bed and in the early morning can be good times when your brain is susceptible to change because you're trying to change your subconscious beliefs here. But there's an interesting sort of circular problematic piece to this, which is when we do that subconscious reprogramming, part of what we use is evidence to the contrary. And when something is a very ingrained belief that's affecting getting needs met, it could be very difficult for a dismissive avoidant to potentially find the evidence they need if it's not maybe really there in their life yet. And so I would definitely encourage working on core wounds as the first step and doing the subconscious reprogramming around them. And so hopefully if a dismissive avoidant does this, they will, in a methodical manner. So you're going to do it for lots of different areas of your life and find evidence where you did get a need met. Hopefully they would find some evidence already. And even a little bit of evidence can go a ways towards shifting these. But I do think that because of the nature of this being such a big block And so there may not be some needs that are getting met. I think it's also important to do these other steps simultaneously so we can try to start working on the reprogramming, and in order to provide evidence for the reprogramming, can at the same time have these other techniques going to start to get needs met to provide the evidence and to start to shift things already. So the second thing that's really important is to start meeting your own needs. And this one is the one I want to focus on actually the most for this video, because it is crucial that someone starts to treat themselves the way they want to be treated, essentially, to believe it and to be able to receive it from someone else. This can be really difficult to do because it feels like the problem is more outward, or that the only inward part is us communicating, for example. And in order to receive, though, we need to be seeing how we're treating ourselves first. And so in the case of a dismissive avoidant who's not getting their needs met, it's very likely that they are not meeting their own needs in ways that they could. So what are some things that it's going to be a little different for everyone, but what are some basic ones that might be good examples? So often dismissive avoidants, not always, but often need downtime, particularly if they've been in interactions that were more emotionally interactive or charged, even if they weren't charged, just if they were more emotional in nature. So they might need more downtime because of that. And so one thing that a dismissive avoidant can do to start meeting their own needs is to absolutely make sure they're taking care of themselves. So it's kind of interesting, right? Like we sort of think of some of those tendencies as related to that avoidance, but taking care of oneself around those needs that are around the avoidance, like the actually needing some downtime if there's been something emotional or a lot of interaction with other people, is crucial. Also, it could be as simple as something like making sure you're taking care and prioritizing your own physical health or needs. So let's say that workouts always come last because you do on the sort of practical material levels take care of everyone else in all these ways, and including work. Perhaps trying to schedule your workout first before you go to work in the morning, if that's at all possible. If you have enough flexibility to do that, would be a fantastic way to not only meet that need, but what you're starting to do is show your subconscious that you can get your needs met, in this case, by meeting them yourself. And then, to loop back to that first point about subconscious reprogramming and core wound reprogramming, that then will help you build on what you're trying to do there in a very crucial way, because you're starting to have evidence that you can use, because you can absolutely count that evidence of how you're meeting the needs yourself. So the next step is to start communicating the needs. And so again, if you just don't believe someone's going to meet them, that can be tricky, right? That can be difficult. I mean, even in how you're communicating it, maybe you're going to influence the situation. So I really here would encourage acting as if. So I would encourage trying to, kind of like when they sometimes say, try to change your expression and see if it lifts your mood, that kind of thing. I would encourage acting as if the person's going to meet the need, and that it's going to go well, that you'll eventually get the need met if you communicate, so that you can go in with maybe the subconscious belief is still there on some level, but that it's not dominating your interaction as you try to communicate the need. And then it's especially not dominating you starting the communication at all. And of course, the caveat here, especially if this is something new you're doing and the person you're in relationship with isn't used to you doing this, is that it's going to be true that they may not respond immediately in the way you'd like. So here you go to all this trouble of actually finally communicating your need, and maybe that they're shocked or they don't respond right away in the way that you would have liked. And so we have to have that caveat there, and hopefully that understanding that you can remind yourself about if that happens, that trying to think of it, yes, you're acting as if they're going to meet your need, but you're acting as if they're going to meet your need eventually as you start this communication, as it becomes this process and they become used to it. So trying to keep that perspective mixed in there as well. And that, it potentially might involve some compromise as well, because when you do bring your needs and the other person's also bringing your needs, that's when you can negotiate and figure out how to get them both met in a way that works for both of you. And then one final thing is to try to notice when maybe your needs are not being met. So for example, if you notice you catch some resentment, you whether it's snapping or just inside your own mind when you're helping, someone else out with something, someone you're in relationship with. That's just a really opportune time to notice and to do some investigating there. So trying to not just let that slip by if you notice resentment, and trying to investigate and actually ask yourself that question. What's happening here? Is it because I'm not getting my own needs met? And then looping right back into this process, like, of what can I do about this? And really, you could loop into any of the steps here into doing more of the subconscious reprogramming of the core wound for being helpless about getting your needs met, or really ramping up meeting some of your own needs, knowing that that doesn't mean, oh, I'm all alone, I can only meet my own needs. Not at all. What it means is that you're both showing yourself you can meet some of those needs, and you are making yourself receptive to getting your needs met by others as well, because it is becoming more familiar to you to consciously have needs met like that. And then finally, and actually acting as if and communicating with the expectation that down the line, maybe it takes a little more communication, but down the line, those needs will be addressed in your relationship. So I hope that was helpful. It was kind of an overview, really with a focus on how it's difficult to overcome that barrier when there's such a strong core wound that might interfere with the actual healing process itself. But I don't think it has to. I think you can work it a bit by starting with the core wound reprocessing, which is the most important, but working at some of the other pieces at the same time as well, like I said, by focusing on the part that's initially within your control with meeting your own needs, and by acting as if and starting to shift the patterns with the communication where others are involved as well. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful. Please like and subscribe to get the word out about this channel. If you're interested in the breath work as an extra tool for subconscious reprogramming, or if you're interested in coaching, you can find links about that in the description box below, and I'll see you next time.